Hi everyone, welcome to 90 Degree Turns. I'm your host, Trisha Margus. Today I have the pleasure of speaking with Jay Gilliland at the East City Ranch in Washington. Welcome, Jay, to the show.
Thanks, Trish.
So, could you tell our audience a little bit about yourself?
I've been living here since my brother came up here. I spend half my time of the years in Mexico. I work at a yoga retreat center there, doing my body craft and healing craft, and I also do work at a medical clinic there, doing other kinds of things, working with electromagnetic healing devices.
Okay.
Yes.
Great. So what kind of brought you onto this path of kind of holistic healing and medicine?
I was sort of born that way. I've had an interest in it my whole life. Even when I was in my mid-teens and stuff, I was very interested in these things.
Mm-hmm.
I had experimented with a lot of psychedelic drugs around those times, and that kind of jolted my awareness to maybe seek more. I came to, after doing that a few times, I could see that the things were sort of not the way they were supposed to be, and I was really impelled to look deeper into things like that. So, and become my passion, whatever.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so do you find that taking substances is kind of sometimes a nice gateway opening to different realities that maybe one wouldn't have perceived otherwise?
Yes, I think it is. I think it's a very super powerful way of doing that. But I think it has to be done in a sacred manner,
Mm-hmm.
and a manner that's very respectful, sacred, and with somebody who's competent and really knows what they're doing. Yes.
I definitely agree with
Yes.
that. But I think respecting any kind of substance is very, very
Exactly.
important.
Yes.
You don't want to go willy-nilly
No.
with it. So I know here at the ranch you do you recently did a holotropic breathwork
Yes.
workshop.
Yes.
So could you tell us more about what this is? Because I've definitely heard about it,
Mm-hmm.
but I'm not quite sure what it is. So if you could go into it, that would be wonderful.
Yes, it is referring back to the psychedelics. This method it's basically using an expanded state of consciousness
Mm-hmm.
and moving into that expanded state with the breath, which ends up being having the unconscious mind open up. And also that you're in a very, very highly energetic state from breathing over and over like a hyperventilation thing. You're going to be in a very energetic state. So that loosens up the unconscious mind. The resistances there are kind of go down the tubes, and it just obliterates the barriers between the conscious and the unconscious mind. So then what happens is, depending on the person, things start to come up.
Mm-hmm.
And anything from traumas and stuff on this side of things, and it can come up, childhood, past life, birth trauma, any kind of traumas, any kind of stuff, early childhood, teenage, whatever it is, can come up to look at for healing. And you're able to mobilize the energies to actually release those things because you're in a very highly energetic state.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing is that I've always been very, very interested in healing with expanded states of consciousness, to having that as a resource. Because most of our problems stem from the unconscious, and we have to go there and reprogram that and see and look at our stuff, do our shadow work to be able to really ascend or get to another level of ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
So this work, the Holotropic Breathwork, is basically based on the work of Stan Groff, and he borrowed things from many people, as well as he researched a lot of shamanic practices. So it's like a modern day shamanic ritual that a group partakes in. And the goal is to be able to expand consciousness and just deal with our stuff. Another thing that happens during this work is that any spiritual thing you've ever heard of, any psychic, any spiritual thing you've ever heard of can happen during a session. In fact, it does, mostly with everybody in one way or another. Because the technique is actually so powerful, and it's really almost duplicates a psychedelic experience almost.
But the person is way more aware of it.
Well, it's more controllable in
Mm-hmm.
the fact that they can stop breathing.
Mm-hmm.
They can
And
stop,
then experience just
and they'll
pause.
start to come back out of it.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Whereas if you're taking a psychedelic drug, you're on for a ride until
it wears off.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And it might not be as controllable, but it does have the same sort of impact. It does the same sort of things to the mind as a psychedelic drug does, pretty much.
And so, how would you compare like holotropic breathwork to something that's like shamanic breathing techniques? Are they similar in the concept where you kind of get yourself into a higher state of consciousness through breath itself?
They're similar in that way, but the holotropic way is not to. There's a connected breathing that all of these things seem to have in common. It's connected breathing. People have different ways of doing that. Some people say do it through the nose, through the mouth, but the basically formula to do the breath is the same in rebirthing, in radiance, and all these other methods of breathing to induce an altered or expanded state of consciousness.
Mm-hmm. And you mentioned earlier that there's trauma that people have to. When you mean trauma, is it emotional, physical, all sorts of trauma? There's not really a limit to the kind of trauma that could be healed through breath work?
Well, the trauma seems to exist multidimensional because I can have a physical thing that affects me emotionally. Mm-hmm. I can have an emotional thing that affects me physically. And we're all going to draw conclusions from our life experiences. And much of our life experience and much of it comes as a result of programming from the time we're very young, up to 6 years old. And we don't even filter anything. We assume everything. We do everything by association at that level, at that age. And there's no filter, there's no intellect there to be able to discern or to integrate these experiences. So they get stuck, they get lodged deep in the unconscious. And a lot of it's this programming, you don't even know you have it. You don't even know what it is. The most obvious way of looking at it is looking, what is your life manifesting? What are you manifesting in your life? Because that's coming out of you. It's coming out of your unconscious mind. You're basically projecting, you're controlling your own reality, basically. You're manifesting your own reality. So your life experience is basically an indicator of where you're stuck. Like most people have something come up over and over and over again, the same kind of experience, the same kind of pattern. And that's a clue, right? But the origin of these patterns, the origin of these things are a lot of times very deep, and they can go back to past lives. They can go back to interdimensional experiences. They can go back to a lot of stuff's in birth trauma, which is hard to
really.
It's hard to discern for most people because it's such a kinesthetic and somatic experience. There's no visuals. There's no auditory. It's just a feeling, and that can imprint the mind of an entity, of a child, or of a fetus, actually. And we also know that it can be imprinted even before birth, because the baby is conscious. It's consciousness, yes, right? And it's going to record everything that's happening, even on the outside. It can connect to and know, especially concerning its parents, because that's.
It's already connected with the mother.
Exactly.
So whatever she's going through.
Yeah, and it's just connected to
the joy,
the whole field.
All the factors.
The whole thing. It's connected to the whole thing. So the child does do that. In the past, psychologists never acknowledge, and to this day they don't. A lot of the mainstream guys, they don't acknowledge that this birth trauma is actually really, really prevalent in everybody to some degree or another. And it can set off experiences later on in life, in childhood, to where you form a certain belief by that experience in the womb, and that will continue to manifest through the whole lifetime until that's healed.
That's that's incredible.
Yes.
But it seems very hard to pinpoint that would be the root cause of someone's habitual kind of patterns. Mm-hmm. I mean, because it's something that I don't personally recollect my birth experience. I find that to be probably difficult for many people to remember it, because memory doesn't really kind of stick, I feel like, to 3 or 4 years old,
it's all recorded. It's all there, and it's just whether it's your soul's path to get to that stuff or not. But it's not always the origin. It's really hard to say what an origin is, because you can have a past life where there's the same theme going on, the same theme that you're dealing with, and you don't complete it, you don't get it. So then you reincarnate, and what happens is it recapitulates itself in the birth trauma. and then later on in childhood, and then later on through the teens, and later on in life.
So you have chances to kind of
you
work
always
through
have,
it and go.
There's
you can
no
let,
end.
let it be eventually, but
there's
have to
no
work
end
through
to
it.
your chances. The thing is that you don't really have an option about whether you need to heal it or not. You just have an option about when.
And being aware of it or not.
Yes, being when. And it is about awareness. That's exactly what it's about, because these parts of ourselves we're unaware of. They're buried, lodged deep in the unconscious mind, and we're not aware of them. And they're programs that run us. They alter our perception. Our emotions, to a great degree, drive our thinking at some point. Once we become patterned, we associate different, our beliefs and stuff are associated with certain emotions and things and reactions that we've had in the past. So the emotions will drive the way I think, and the thinking will drive the way the emotions react. So you get in this very harsh loop, you might say.
It's a cycle that
yes,
continue.
And until and really it's embedded mostly because a belief can change in a split second. And emotions can transform pretty quickly too. The physical body is slow. It takes longer, right? Because
there's a more delay.
It's vibrating slower, yeah. So these things take, so the idea is to bring to awareness these fragmented parts of ourself that we push down, that we haven't looked at and whatever. And that's really our karma, our dharma, our the things that we need to really look at, right? To have these, on the other hand, you can have these transpersonal experiences, meaning that any spiritual thing, you can have contact with other beings in other dimensions. You can have contact with angels. I guess that's the same thing. You could have very shamanic experiences where you become an animal, actually become that animal, and you're looking through its eyes, and you're feeling what it's feeling.
You are it.
You are it, yeah. And we know how this works because everybody who's up on things knows that consciousness is non-local. It's everywhere in everything, and it's one field connected with everything. So basically, we're connected with everything, and we can access anything. We just have to know how to do it, right?
And bring our conscious awareness to it.
Exactly.
Like you were saying before, it's awareness.
So it's a method of uncovering and doing your work to open up and to heal the parts of yourself, which is bringing the consciousness and understanding what it is. And once it's seen, and the energy's released or emoted, then you're it's just memory after that. It's not affecting you from underneath, and you have a freedom of choice. You have a freedom to choose from a new way of thinking. You're liberated from that the energy of that of just completely transforming the way you see, the way you think. Now you're free to think in a different way. You're free to believe in a different way, because at the end of the day, our thoughts are what's creating our reality, the way we think about things. And our thoughts, even on ours, they're not even yours. They were given to you by a culture, by a certain language, by
programming.
Yes, it's programming.
Very much programming.
It's programming. So if we can get to that programming, there's ways to get to that program to first to make it conscious, and then to heal it. And then after that, our energy's freed up, our perception's freed up.
You're not going to cage it in anymore.
Exactly.
You start thinking for yourself and opening up your perspective.
This method, in my passion, is using expanded states of consciousness for healing. That's what I do. That's what I love. That's my passion.
Yeah, very cool.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for sharing that.
Sure.
So I know you also do things with the Rife Machine.
Yes.
And so that technology was created in the 30s, right, by Raymond Rife.
Exactly.
Could you tell us more about the kind of vibrational and frequency technology that it is? Because I find it very, very fascinating. And it's an incredible tool if you know about it and how to use it.
Yes. Well, as most of us know, that everything vibrates, and everything is a frequency of some sort. At some level, all matter is just energy. And what makes the energy, what qualifies the energy, the matter, what makes it the way it is the way it vibrates. Okay? The amount of electrons, the amount of protons, and these things are oscillating, they're vibrating. So we know that everything vibrates. So in the way of this machine, I would rather call it a device, a healing device. It's basically a frequency generator. In other words, it puts out one single frequency at once. And the way it works is through resonance. meaning that when we have two waves of the same frequency, two sources, if you do one, the other one will come into phase conjunction with that wave, and they'll come together and create a spike in the amplitude. Okay? And if you have one source of that frequency that's very low amplitude, and you have another source that's really high amplitude, this one, the higher amplitude will overcome the lower one. Okay. So what happens is basically in the same way that you can break a glass with your voice is through resonance. In other words, I match my voice, the sound, to the frequency of the crystal of the glass, and it just shatters it. The same thing as it does. In other words, we know the way it works is we know that each cell, each kind of cell has its own unique frequency. Now, when you understand that, well, what is a one-celled organism, a bacteria or a virus? It has one single frequency. When we know what that frequency is, we can match that frequency with a machine and overwhelm the organism, the pathogen, and it basically rupture its cell walls and kill it. And that's basically how they originally were using the machine. Now, Rife did amazing things. He would sit there under a microscope for hundreds of thousands of hours with a Rife machine right next, with a bulb right next to him, beaming the energy down onto the microscope. While he was looking at it, then he would change the frequencies, watching to see what happened with microbes. And he started doing that. First, he started with cancer. That was his big thing. He was working with cancer. Then after that, he started using other diseases. And what he did is through his research, he started to find out the resonant frequencies of all these microbes. So in other words, he would look at it under the microscope, he would turn it until it blew up, and he would do it over and over until he knew exactly what the frequency was. So that's how that was developed. And so we all know that through research for hundreds of years, we know what the frequencies for almost anything that exists, any bug, any pathogen, anything, we know what they are. So when we know that, we can actually use a vibratory, a machine that's an energy machine to create the proper frequency to deliver into the body and thus killing the microbes inside the body.
And it would only kill the things that you don't, that match that frequency.
Exactly.
So it wouldn't harm you, like, for example, chemotherapy is a practice that's used in our modern medicine where it kills a lot of cells, not just the ones that you want to get rid of.
Exactly.
But it harms your entire body as a collective. And there's so many, I think 1.6 million new cancer cases every single year, and it's only getting stronger.
50%.
Yeah, exactly. And it's just, it's incredible the magnitude of that cancer, just how far it spreads to everyone. Yes. And it's really like traumatic for people to go through that or have loved ones that are going through that. And the medical system doesn't seem to be helping.
No.
They just either want to keep you either sick enough that you're not healthy, but you still need their services.
Yes. Well, it's profit driven and there's a lot of money in it.
Exactly. There's almost an unfathomable amount of money in the whole system. So this machine here, it seems like it's a very safe, relatively simple way to cure someone, either if it's cancer or some, let's say like chicken pox or something. That, like you said, everything has a frequency, right?
Yes.
So if someone gets down with like a really bad chicken pox, they can get rid of it and they don't harm themselves. Yes. It's incredible.
First of all, we know that there are so many things that with the chemotherapy, as you know, it does kill a lot of the other surrounding cells. It also destroys your immune system. Well, that's really what you need. Now, the Rife Machine really doesn't cure anything. Neither does any of the chemotherapy or anything else. It's your own body's intelligence, the cellular regeneration system that cures you. It's you that cures you. It's the information in your field that cures you. What the Rife Machine does, and even all the herbs or even chemotherapy or anything else, what they do is they remove the barriers. They remove the things that are in the way for the body to actually heal itself. The body heals itself. You have to understand that. So there's nothing outside there that's healing you. But we have things that can enhance that process by removing the things that are in the way to help the body to regenerate itself. For instance, the immune system isn't healing you. It just is like a war. It goes
fighting all the time.
Kills and kills everything out and creates a huge mess. But it doesn't regenerate you. there's another system in you that does that. So if we can remove the obstacles for that system to be able to operate, efficiently, that's what all these things do. That's what herbs do. That's what drugs do. That's what these frequency machines do. That's what they all do. They all do the same thing. So I would hesitate to say the machine cures you, or even anything else cures you other than
yourself,
your own self.
Mm-hmm.
And that's what.
But those tools are important. They can be used in a very beneficial way for your body to go into that process of self-healing and, I guess, rejuvenation of sorts.
Exactly. Yeah. One of these days we'll find it. I'm thinking we found the immortality gene, and we might be able to turn it on. We'll see.
And people have been searching for the finding of you for a very long time. So
I think that was denied us at one point. Yeah. Wow. We have stories in the ancient stories about that.
Very interesting.
Yeah.
I'll have to look into that.
Yeah.
When you look at something like a Rife Machine
mm-hmm.
and how it kind of changes the general mindset of people when they look at chemo, right? It's mm-hmm. a very tried and true practice, and this might be new for other people. They haven't heard of it. Mm-hmm. Is there I lost my train of thought.
It's okay.
I'm going to cut it. But,
that's right.
What do you want to say? I guess, okay, so my question would be to you then is how do you maybe introduce something like a Rife Machine to someone who isn't really aware of it in the first place? Because it doesn't seem like it's kind of common knowledge.
No.
Maybe in certain circles it is, but mainstream medicine, I don't find that they look at this as a tool.
Well, there's a couple reasons for that. And one reason is that they don't is because it's illegal for a doctor to recommend or use one of these things.
Is it because they can't make money off of it? Like
no, it's not because of that. It's because it's a threat to the pharmaceutical industries. It's really simple. I'm just going to say it outright.
Yeah.
It's a threat to the pharmaceutical industries. And the pharmaceutical industries and the insurance companies are pretty much running modern medicine. And that's who's dictating what goes on. It's not really that. As far as introducing this to people, I offer the machine out in demonstrations, and I go to places where there's people that are open-minded, mm-hmm. people that are maybe able to think beyond their conventional belief systems and look at this. And if you really look at this from a scientific point of view, if you look at it from an efficacy point of view, you can see that this is it's very logical. There's nothing crazy about it. No new age or anything else. It's just straight physics. It works. It's been working. But for a doctor to use it, they could lose their license real fast. And it's interesting. But as a layperson, we can use the machine, and we can recommend. We can give the machine to others or whatever. And so that should tell you something about who, why, what's going on here. Because who would be more qualified to use the machine than a doctor?
Of course.
Okay, so.
The challenge is the status quo.
Yeah, so the problem is really that the machine has been very suppressed, and even to the realm of putting people in jail and even people losing their lives over this, because the pharmaceutical industries, as you know, are quite powerful right now. They basically have the lawmakers in their pocket. There's a huge collusion going on there. And so that information, unless you look outside the conventional world, it's not gonna be really available. Although there's a lot, if you really want to look into it, there's a lot of information on the internet all over the place here. So that's the big problem of it. I'm thinking is that it's been suppressed, and it will until some changes happen. I'm thinking it's just going to be that way. But people who tend to look beyond things, who don't take their doctor's word as the end authority on things, who really want to look at something that's a logical, safe way of doing things, they'll come across it. So I offer people to look at it, and what happens is some people, they go, oh my God, they get really excited. They go, oh my God, this, and then I'll give them more information and I'll let them do, because I don't like to try to sell it. You know, I
I
don't
don't
want
think
to
you
push
need
it
to sell
or
a product. If someone feels attuned to that,
exactly,
and they
so
feel resonating with what you're showing them.
yes, and that's what I look for, and then I'm engaging with them or whatever, and so I'll give them the information, let them make their own choices. But I don't like to try to sell it, you know, to influence somebody to get it. It's like they have it or they don't. They have it inside, they'll get it or they don't. They won't
because imagine if someone tries to, let's say someone comes up to the Rife Machine and they're interested in it, but they don't really believe in it, right? They can try it out and they can say it's not for me. If you were to like sell it to them, they could purchase it, right? And they'll never use it because they don't believe in what it could do. It would just sit in the corner getting dusty, you know? So you definitely would like, it makes sense. You want someone who at least is open-minded enough to want to experience this and test it out and see if it'll be beneficial for them.
Yes.
Are there any limits to what the Rife Machine can help with? Is there any kind of viral limits or any kind of limitations to it, or does truly everything that's been mapped out so far with the different illnesses and diseases that it all has a very specific dial tone frequency to it, and once you get to that, like there's really no limits to it, no boundaries?
Well, through 60 years of research or more here, they know that it does work for certain kinds of diseases more efficiently than others. And there's so many factors. That would be a huge whole another
segment
to get into. Yeah. So we do know that it works better for certain things, and it's also electromedicine, meaning that when you're using the machine, it's when you turn it off, it's over. You're done. So there has to be a consistency, a momentum building with this kind of therapy, or this kind of machine. Whereas if you take a drug or something like this, it just keeps operating, and it starts to diminish. It it goes through a cycle, but you're getting treated the whole time that you're under the influence of the drug, right? Whereas the machine, when you turn it off, you're done. That's it. And the other thing about it is it won't work unless you actually know the right frequency. You hit the right frequency. You have to hit that frequency. And that right now, in my mind, from doing this work forever, is the biggest weakness of this field, is that that we don't have scanners yet that are reliable enough to make that, to actually find out exactly what microbe is there, exactly what frequency it's at. And once we have that, I mean, they're developing these right now. They're really expensive though. And once we have that, we can marry that with the machine, and it will be very, very efficient and accurate. But right now, most people they'll know a set of frequencies that in the set of frequencies, one or two of those frequencies might be the one, but we don't really know what it is, except for we can do things like muscle testing or that, or some kind of a biofeedback in the body that can recognize and tell us exactly what the frequency is. So once we have that, it's going to be amazing. So these machines, what they'll do is they'll do a sweep to the body. They'll run frequencies, thousands in a second through the body, and the machine is sensitive enough to pick up a resonance spike. So if you have a tuberculosis cell, it hits the frequency for that, and you get a spike, and the machine's able to sense it. It records it, and if it does it several times, then it matches it to a database in the machine and feeds back what you've got, exactly what the frequency.
Wow.
Then you can go to the Rife Machine and bang, you've hit it right on you nail it on the head.
And you can get rid of it.
As far as I don't think, I think any machine is limited, and I really believe in the power of the human being itself to be able to heal itself internally. We have everything we need. We don't need anything from the outside at the end of the day to heal ourselves. Each one of us can heal ourselves with our own minds by going inside and learning the techniques for healing and clearing away the things that impede our energy. So, ultimately these things are all crutches, devices, but ultimately I think in the future, as we become more conscious, we become more aware, we become super conscious, we're able to discern how we manipulate matter, because these bodies are matter, and they're being manipulated by templates and programs, energetic programs that our minds create. We're creating it all. So would you say that you can make yourself sick by your thoughts, by your thinking? Well, then, in the same way,
you can make yourself happy. And
yes, you can make
and
yourself healthy. Okay, well, there you go.
But I think a lot of people, their thoughts are very repetitive. If you're trying to consciously look at, like, let's say just 24-hour time span, and you look at your thoughts, I feel like when you're not conscious of what you're thinking of, it's kind of the same story. Like, all you are is really the stories you tell yourself.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
And so you have to choose to change that storyline. And then once you start changing that storyline and kind of repeating that to yourself often, enough until you believe it,
yes,
it manifests in
yes.
your reality.
Yes.
I mean, that's how this 3D works, right? Like,
yes, you're the placebo.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
Yes. Yeah.
So I think it's really incredible that once you go within, you can realize how impactful you can be on the outside.
Yes.
And things will change.
Yes, and that requires a little bit of
diligence.
And courage and willingness, all of those things.
Definitely.
Need to be there. Sometimes we need help from the outside to get going a little bit sometimes. But
I mean, we still live in this reality, right? So it is nice to be a part of it.
Oh yeah, it's wonderful.
And to have a couple, like, just some tools on the outside,
Yeah.
But as long as I feel like those tools can't be a crutch, and you can realize that within is everything you'd ever need is inside of you.
Exactly. Everything you ever need is inside of you.
Yeah. It's beautiful.
Yes.
It's beautiful. It's
yes.
Like
you're the power. You're
cosmic
the
orchestra. Just
It's just that you were saying about the thoughts, basically, I think the first thing people need to be is they have to find out get a little bit of a handle on what they really are. And part of that is when they're identified with the thinking mind, that's a problem. So we have the consciousness is what they really are, the living life, right, the soul. And what happens, they mistake the body mind to be them. And so by slowing the mind down, by inquiry, by meditating like this, you can learn to separate that off into consciousness, that you realize that you're conscious, observing the mind, observing the body, all this. And the more you do that, the more of a little separation goes like this, and pretty soon your identity is this. And you're just a part of the body, but you're not the body. Exactly. Mm-hmm. So this is something that has to do with if a person's ready, they want to really start to, who would they be without their story, right? I mean, who would you be without your story? What story is that? What are you telling yourself? Whatever. And that takes some diligence to be able to to separate from the mind and observe it. How can I observe it when I think I am the mind? I have to separate out and look at it have some space there. Does that make sense?
Yes.
And then once I start to understand my true identity, that I'm just that awareness rather than the mind and the thoughts and the beliefs and all these things, then I can start to go, I might question all of that. I might question the whole thing like this.
I highly recommend questioning everything.
Yes. And then at that point, you will start to, once you understand that you're in control of this thing, that you're actually not that, right? Then how do I change that? How do I change this? Because what I'm experiencing in my life is what's in my mind, what I believe. It's like you said. And so the mind is just going to keep reduplicating that experience over and over. And that's your reality. But is that really you? It's just the one you created. And you can uncreate it the same way you created it. And that's where the healing goes. But there has to be at some point a way of separating. The thing is, like, society, culture have programmed us to believe that we're this. And it just keeps reinforcing it every day. And so, you're going to have to do a little work and step outside the box and, check it out. See what's going on there.
See what's on the other side.
Yeah, do some inquiry. and some people are impelled by that internally already. They just have it. They're born with it. It's just their destiny. And then others have to get hard knocks. They get knocked around. They hit the cement walls. They have horrible problems. They have life-threatening things happen. They have things that need to shake them loose to make them wonder and go, oh, well, maybe there's something more to this. I really don't like this life I'm living. I don't like this program that I'm experiencing. What can I do? Sometimes it just has to get worse enough for them to be able to to change.
Just change. Kind of
unfortunately,
wake up and be like, wait, no, maybe there's another alternative way.
Yes, it doesn't necessarily have to be. Well, it's just like joyfully going in and going for it and doing it. But we don't have to get the hard knocks. But that seems to be.
It depends because every person's journey is different.
Exactly.
So some people do have to have these hard knocks happen.
Yes.
Other ones it's more flowy. It really is it's very personal.
Exactly.
You know,
It's
there's no
uniquely
one size
each person.
fits all. Like this is the right way. That concept of right and wrong also is quite
Yes.
putting you in a box
Yes.
and compartmentalizing already. You know, you got to go beyond any of the labels and the boxes and the programs, and eventually you'll find your way.
Yeah.
We all do.
Yes.
So, is there anything you'd like to talk to our viewers about that? I know you cover a range of topics. Is there anything you don't usually talk about that you'd like to maybe mention on our show here?
That's a good question. Not really. I don't know what else to think. I mean, if you have any questions, I see what I can.
I mean, I really enjoyed our conversation so far today, and I'd love if you ever want to chat again or come on the show. We can
love to
talk more, and I really appreciate having you on here,
yes.
Jay.